Assassination Classroom was my favorite anime from 2016. Considering that year gave us Fantasy Groundhog Day, One Punch Crippling Anxiety Edition, and that thing with the butts, I don't say that lightly. Assassination Classroom is unconventional brilliance, a Coke and Mentos explosion combining school drama, action, and humor.
Unemployment is at an all-time high!
With a creature feature. In this show, the harbinger of the apocalypse is also the greatest teacher of all time, whose life lessons are all filtered through assassination training. The art of killing is used to teach life. That is truly inspired. Today we'll look at a small piece of its greatness by taking a critical eye to Assassination Classroom's fourth and final opening. What makes a good OP? I'd say 3 things. It sets the tone for the series, explores themes of the show, albeit in a less narrative and more abstract manner, and serves as a sort of preview for the internal and external conflicts that will arise over the course of the story. If the song is a real banger, that's extra. This opening is smart and just plain entertaining for a number of reasons, but I'm going to focus almost exclusively on 2 things: the usage of visual motifs and the ways the intro abstracts the show's story and thematic elements. The abstraction in particular is what makes this OP special, on its own and when compared with the previous 3 OPs for the show. The other 3 openings for Ass Class focus on establishing shots of the characters, pretty typical anime stuff, and dance moves? Dorky dance moves. They're cute, they're sometimes catchy. Okay, this one's pretty annoying. The 4th opening, though? It means something. Not that the others don't, but they turn it up to 11 with this one. Join me as I delve into the cinematic and animation techniques and ideas used to convey the essence of the final half of the final season. Hope you got your notes ready, cause I blew up the moon and let me tell you about Bye Bye Yesterday. To fully appreciate this opening's imagery and its subsequent merits, we have to look at it within the context of the entire show. The opening itself features major plot spoilers without me mining them for meaning. If you haven't seen Assassination Classroom and you like anime, I can't imagine why else you'd be here. Hi, Mom. Go and watch it. I can guarantee it's not going to be what you expect, alright? So I'm gonna pretend that you paused this video and then went and watched it, and then in like a few seconds you come back. Oh, hey! So what'd you think? I know, right? Oh yeah, and I couldn't find a completely textless opening that was of acceptable video quality, so sorry about that. I guess the internet's not pirating hard enough these days. Support the official release! The opening begins with us fading up from black on 3E's chalkboard. On the board, we see snippets of memories from the previous episodes, our adventures with the kids of 3E. All the memories on the board are of happy times. These are successes and moments where the students applied all that they've learned. The camera pulls back and the memories begin to fade, revealing the void that is the blank board. It seems to say, class is over, or maybe it's just beginning. The familiar confines of the classroom are empty. We see the memories contained within them fade away. We're given a grim introduction to the season's main themes of moving on and inevitability. But those happy moments still linger in our minds, hazy though they might be. The lights are off, but the windows on the side of the room let in a bit of brightness, casting the interior in a dim division of light and dark. The effect is bittersweet. And keep that descriptor in mind. This first shot, along with the music, is a strong departure from the previous openings, which were more upbeat. Aside from the third, which this one kind of builds upon, but shh. A different mood is being crafted. The view of the empty classroom, dimly lit with fading memories we pull away from, is powerful. It's evocative of leaving things behind. The desks are abandoned with materials left inside them. The memories on the chalkboard get erased. With nothing but camera movement, furniture, a bit of lighting, and montage, this shot creates a strong emotional resonance. It's sad. You can feel it. And you understand this is what the end of the year will be like for these students. The silly times and preppy this are being abandoned because it's time to move on. E-class can't let the world end, and to graduate they have to kill the teacher, which means moving on from this part of their lives. They'll pull away from the board and leave the room behind, just like we are. It's at the end of the OP, however, where we will see that this situation may be tragic, but it's not a bad thing at all. In fact, it's a natural part of life. The title cuts in quickly over the board, saying, "Listen up, no time to linger. Here is your final assignment." Koro-sensei faces envelop the screen, then we fade from white to the OP's prime visual motif for expressing change. These ring filters that pass over the same images to reveal different sides of the same people and events. Throughout the OP, these represent not only the changes that occur, but the mixed emotions of the students and teachers for their current situation. The character intro segment has been a staple of the openings of Ass Class, but there is a lot more consideration put into what this segment is saying to the audience than the previous entries. This isn't an introduction to characters so much as it is an exploration of mind space. There are many interesting juxtapositions created by the rings, but my personal favorite is this image of Karma. This shot shows Karma in a way that almost looks like he's holding a knife behind his back. The abstract composite seems to highlight Karma's deceptive nature. His charisma masks his blade, just as it does in the show.
Then there's Karma. At first blush, all sarcasm and laziness, but behind that facade lurks the instinct of a killer.
The image revealed by what I'll call the natural colored rings shows the kids content, posing with their blades, the tools they use to express what they have learned this year. These rings represent the present day. Knowledge has empowered the students, and their weapons embody that knowledge symbolically. The students are strong and happy with their weapons, but we see sadness or lack of direction without them. These gray-green rings represent the past and cast the children in a depressing light. They are lost, looking away from the camera with dejected or blank expressions. There are a couple of ways you can look at this, the first being that this filter represents the students before the school year. They are what the school made them out to be, the low-grade losers used to fuel the growth of the kids in the higher classes. These are the kids who have had the idea that they can't succeed drilled into their skulls. They are those who have accepted their given lot in life, or at best, are unfit to fight against it. Notice the lack of weapons, which again symbolizes their knowledge. Remember how I said OPs are sort of like ways to preview what you're going to be seeing? Well, here we have a prime example. Watching this for the first time, the viewer is undoubtedly thinking, are they sad? Did they kill Koro-sensei? Were they able to, or are they considering whether or not they can even do it? We can't be sure, as we don't know what has become of Koro-sensei. He hasn't been featured outside of those particle effects yet. Now we'll look at the third ring, this white one that removes the background of the school. The kids are holding their weapons the same way they do in the natural ring, but they have changed physically. They've changed colors and their outlines are a bit softer. This ring represents the future. I'll return to how I know this is the case in a little bit, so hold on to that. For now, let's answer this question. What are these kids looking at? Let's say the camera is Koro-sensei. The children look towards the camera, proudly brandishing the knowledge they gained. With this in mind, the flickering, shifting rings could be seen to represent Koro-sensei remembering where the kids came from and the unwritten futures they move towards, represented by the lack of a background in the future filter. Why then is Nagisa the opposite of everyone else? He's the only student who doesn't look directly into the camera in the empowered shots. First, this is a signifier to the audience that Nagisa is special among the students. If you hadn't watched the show before, it would be pretty easy to identify him as the main character. Noticing Nagisa as an exception to the way the other students behave, coupled with his prominence in the foreground, emphasizes his importance. And by association and their separation from the rest of the class, we put together that Karma and Kayano are important as well. Now, what exactly is Nagisa looking at? Your first instinct was likely like mine, Karma, right? That makes sense, given how much the two support each other throughout the show, but is it really worth breaking the camera staring trend to tell us that Nagisa has some kind of relationship with Karma? That seems like a trivial point to make in this context. Relationships between the other kids aren't explored in their looks, though they are paired together by their clicks and by associated skills. With our understanding of where these three are in the classroom, it would seem Nagisa is looking towards the chalkboard off screen, the head of the class. Nagisa has his weapons and now he's going to put them to use by moving towards the front of the room, the area designated for the teacher. Part of Nagisa's journey was learning that he wanted to become an educator. With the tools he's gained, that goal is within sight. But his journey will also lead him away from the straight path his friends follow, the path right into the camera. In the final episode, Nagisa hasn't been in contact with them and doesn't attend the reunion at the school.
You know how he is, always keeping his eye on the target.
I also like how Ritsu and Itona aren't present in the gray-green filters, another indicator that this is the past, since they didn't join the class until later in the school year. If you haven't been with me on what I'll call the time, the donut of the heart theory, let's look at the next clip and see how the opening makes a clear statement that the rings represent past, present, and future. Separated by a thick piece of glass is Koro-sensei pre-transformation during the time he was experimented on, and Aguri, who changed Koro-sensei's life and entrusted him with Class 3E. Aguri is only seen in the past ring, the other two representing her fate. We never see pre-Koro-sensei and Aguri entirely in the same frame. Despite having such a profound impact on each other, they could never come together, even after the glass was broken in the present. And yet, Koro-sensei still looks towards her. She's the one who gave him direction and a chance at redemption. Her final words, by the way, "Go teach those children. They are lost in the dark just like you. Look them straight in the eye, and I know you will find your answer." From the student intros in the first verse and now this, we learn that eye contact is another motif in the OP. The students look at the camera when they have their weapons, and when they don't, they look away. They don't have their answer here. Even after Aguri is gone, Koro-sensei maintains eye contact as if she was still there, showing how determined he is to find that answer he needs. Next, we have Koro-sensei overseeing his students playing a game. He's watching them grow and have fun. No matter what ring passes over him, he is always present. The gray tone ring has been replaced by a sepia tone one. This ring reveals the children to be gone, and a lone Koro-sensei draped in the ring representing the future, standing alone. The rings symbolizing their parting growing ever closer to him. He can't escape the eventuality of parting ways, suggested by how the rings encroach on him. But this was always meant to be. He is their teacher, and his job is to prepare them for life, and then let them go. Notice how the ring that takes the children away comes from him, and it comes fast.
Tick-tock, children. Graduation will be here before you know it.
This shot, I can't really explain why, but I get teary-eyed looking at it. I don't know the proper musical term, but I believe we've just transitioned from the first verse to the bridge, and the vocals in this part of the song have a real appealing and kind of melancholy tone to me. I think the effect is stronger having followed the verse, which was more upbeat and featured a different kind of vocalization. And again, I can't really explain why this shot really resonates with me, but I think it's something about how we're approaching this school, coupled with the lyrics, "Once the final bell rings out." It all drives a sense of unease, like we're approaching something we don't want to. The way this phrase is coupled with the translated lyrics that abruptly cut off creates a real gripping tension. Once the final bell rings out, what comes next? We approach the seemingly deserted, lifeless school from the darkness of the woods and fade to the close shot of the 3E sign. The very first image we see in the show, by the way. We get in the classroom and we finally hear, or read, what happens when the final bell rings out. The fun times will end too. The fun times represented by Koro-sensei's presence in the class. He's the one who facilitated their growth and taught them how to enjoy their situation. The rings shift and we see the class in the natural light has been looking at a blank board. In this ring, the fun times have ended. Oh, and not to kill the mood, but I never noticed how silly it is that they have no chairs in the future light.
We are in harmony.
Yeah, it is funny, but I believe this reinforces the idea that the saturated rings represent the future, since they aren't seated in a school desk and the school itself is faded away. It's worth noting that Koro-sensei is present in the future light. Does he live? Will he always be there for his students to teach and care for? Or does his memory live on, continuing to teach the kids as they look into the nebulous tomorrow, their path guided by the memory of their beloved teacher? It's these kind of subtle questions the OP puts in the viewer's mind that make this so suspenseful and effective, even a little bit heartbreaking. This, including a lot of what you've already seen, is the kind of abstraction I'm talking about, taking a conflict of the story and conveying it entirely with visuals for suspense and artistic flair, the latter of which is what makes things stick in your mind as unique, even if you've heard their message before. All of this is of course coupled with proper musical accompaniment. You get a obvious visual in the next quick bit, where the OP flashes days of future past across the screen, which is a pretty blatant statement of intent. And now... Yes! Running! seriously, what intro or outro is complete without metaphorical running? The OP of Star Driver is a personal favorite. I can't recommend the show, though. This seems like cool running for cool running's sake, and I'm all about that. But there is a lot to this. First of all, this type of color palette and the lack of a background has thus far represented the future. And the colored bars passing by are a sort of visual representation of the three kids who seamlessly transition into each other, going a great distance. Perhaps they have the longest to go amongst the students, or will travel the farthest for what they want. Again, singling these students out in this shot signifies to the viewer that they are important. Each of the three scans their surroundings while running. They seem to be exerting themselves, then wearing expressions of fear or concern. Once we circle around Karma to get to his face, he has found the camera and seems satisfied. He's resolved and looks forward bravely. Once again, the camera is their target, Koro-sensei, and Karma has his mind set on how to catch him. And there goes Nagisa again, looking past the camera. As the character who constantly muses about the future in his monologues, we know Nagisa is always looking at how his and others' actions will affect the future, which lies beyond the camera, beyond Koro-sensei. This is one of my favorite shots in the whole OP, the calendar in time-lapse. The days flicker by in fragments of seconds, all the while Koro-sensei, mocking or cheering us on, is superimposed over the images, with the words "Bye Bye Yesterday" scrolling across the screen. The message here is that the end is inevitable. We back away from the calendar, trying to remove it from our view to ignore it. But Koro-sensei is always there, turning clockwise, again reinforcing the passage of time. Time once again for eye contact. In this shot, we have a couple different pairings up on the screen. We see glimpses, fragments of the future of these relationships. Karasuma and Erina look into each other's eyes, foreshadowing their romantic relationship. It also shows the dramatic change Erina has made through her change in attire. Though his position has changed, Karasuma keeps his suit, his loyalty to his people and country unwavering. Nagisa's mother coddles him from behind, a metaphor for the control she had over him, which turns into understanding of her son's wishes. She has learned to distance herself and let Nagisa live his own life, and this is demonstrated by the physical distance between them. Because Nagisa could assert his freedom, he has separated the two of them, and as a result, they can see eye to eye. The principal and his son Asano, despite having differences in the beginning, prescribed to the same philosophy, but by the end, they are at odds, looking away from each other. For better or worse, they've grown apart. Koro-sensei and the Reaper-to-be, they stand and face each other, opposed. But as the rings shift, we see they were once the same. The student who wants to catch the eye of the teacher, but the teacher's gaze is elsewhere. In this shot, he is the Reaper, always looking towards his next target, neglecting the needs of his pupil, a harsh oversight that fuels part of Koro-sensei's need for redemption. It is this regret that fueled Koro-sensei to teach and help his students, and he has to face his mistake in the present by confronting the new Reaper. Oh, and by the way, these little confrontations were foreshadowed in shots with very similar visual elements from the previous opening. It's a nice touch to have setup and payoff between openings. That's cool. We return to the board once again to get another memory montage. Eventually, all the memories on the surface subside, revealing the ominous, inevitable truth that is the encroaching deadline, which changes along with where we are in the story. Not only does this element remind us where we are in the timeline, if say you've been watching this week to week and needed to be caught back up, but it reinforces how much this goal is driving the class. I love when openings are made to be a part of the machinery that tells the story. That wasn't just a JoJo reference earlier, those openings are excellent at this too. In the final episode, the deadline is replaced by a congratulatory message, but that too seems a bit wistful, the way it is lit and how we pull back from it. After all, this is all written on chalk and will no doubt one day be erased. This shot is incredibly effective and gives me chills every time. So far, the idea of time passing has been played up and visualized a few times by clockwise movements and rotating circular objects, but now time is moving backwards, in one sense, even as the years speed by. Let's look at the last few lyrics of the song. 365 days worth of memories. Even if I grow up some more, they still won't fade a bit. In this shot, we are the students, thinking backwards as suggested by the counterclockwise rotation. As time passes, the students reappear in the picture. Our memories become more full. Indeed, the school year hasn't been forgotten, and what transpired only gets more vibrant as the years go by. This final exchange, though, this kills me. Nagisa leaves the school ground as sakura blossoms fall around him. Koro-sensei waves from the distance. We cut back to Nagisa smiling, and then back to... Damn. Let's zoom in on one element of this sequence because it is emblematic of the show's philosophical conclusion: the cherry blossoms. The sakura petal is a ubiquitous image in Japanese art. The flower of the cherry blossom tree is in bloom for only a few weeks in spring before it drops from the tree and withers away. They are seen as a metaphor for life itself, fragile and fleeting, but beautiful in spite and perhaps even because of it. And I'm sorry I have to show this shot from One Piece, but I recorded it for another video and I cried, and damn it, you're gonna suffer with me! The presence of the sakura in this shot places us in spring, which marks the end of the Japanese school year. This is a dead giveaway that what we are watching is occurring at the end of school. Nagisa walking away from the school, this is graduation, the end, but it is also a beginning. See, the sakura is not just a reminder of life's brevity. It is also a symbol of rebirth, heralding the end of winter when life flourishes again. At this point, you probably don't even need me to say it. The falling petals in this shot is another way the OP expresses Koro-sensei's teaching. The falling petals mark the end of the school year and the death of Koro-sensei, even if the show isn't flat out saying it. Without having seen the ending, you get that this, whether or not it's supposed to be taken literally, is everything the show is about, and what it is going to deliver on in the end. Life will change. It is inevitable. But we shouldn't be consumed by sadness, because all of this is a natural cycle. This sequence is Koro-sensei's final lesson. What we have here is a microcosm of the show and its message about the nature of growing up as embodied in the relationship between a student and teacher. It's so
sweet.
The music is coupled with this perfectly. The vocals are dropped and we return to the guitar lick and accompaniment from the intro. Then everything but the guitar cuts out. As if we are musically walking away from the school. All through the OP, we're faced with the inevitability of change, physical and metaphorical death. But inside each of those moments, we can always look back on what made us who we are and learn from it. With that knowledge, we can say bye-bye to yesterday, but always look back on its lessons in the present to help us carry on into the future. Have a happy